Dame i gospodo, poštovani uzvanici, drage studentice, dragi studenti. Htio bih vam najprije predstaviti našeg počasnog gosta, dragog gosta, našu tenderar, zonja prezidente, dr. Vjosa Osmani Sadriju. Danas ćemo slušati jedno kratko predavanje, a nakon toga očekujemo što više pitanja, razgovora. Iskoristimo ovu priliku. Hvala vam.
Zoti rektor, Zoti ambassador, zonja dhe zotri, rector, ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, Dobardan, mirëmëngjes. I was asked to speak in English, of course taking into account that the vast majority of students here are from international relations, but even if not, thank God the young generation speaks so many languages nowadays, so I'm sure that we will understand each other very well. It is truly a great pleasure to have the opportunity to speak here at Libertas University, one of the oldest universities, but also led by one of the people who is a great friend of the Republic of Kosovo and Albanians all around the world, if I might add. So thank you so much for this welcome. Dear professors, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure that so many of you have heard practically every day about how important it is for the countries of the Western Balkans, those of us that are not yet in the European Union, to join the community of nations, community of free nations that are giving their contribution through this union. And this is becoming a topic that we hear about every day, but unfortunately the movement towards the European Union is becoming an extremely slow and frustrating process for so many countries around the region. I'm here today to talk about the importance of not losing hope, the importance of not losing patience, and the importance of not losing sight of how strategically important the enlargement process is, not just for peace and security, peace and stability in the Western Balkans, but it's strategically important for the entire European continent. It's also profoundly important for prosperity in our region, but as we speak, our continent is facing some of the most unprecedented challenges in the area of security, and unfortunately so is our region. So it is important now, as it was more than 20 years ago at the Thessaloniki summit, that we not only reconfirm the European perspective of the Western Balkans, but that we finally take courageous action and courageous steps towards the integration of our region. The Western Balkan countries need a clear time frame when it comes to their movement towards the European Union, as well as a very clear layout of what are the expected reforms that the countries of the Western Balkans need to undertake in order to move towards the European Union. Of course, there are malign forces outside of the EU that would want to hold our region back. It is in their interest, primarily Russian interest, but also other malign forces, if I may add, that the region stays behind as a destabilized part of Europe, because through this they would actually be attacking the values-based system that the European Union stands for. For that reason, it is important that beyond our countries, beyond our region, there are more and more European Union member states that understand that when the Western Balkans region is attacked, when the Western Balkan region is destabilized, that is actually a destabilizing action towards the European Union itself as a values-based system. I do talk about values, always understanding that this is a country that truly understands. Croatia is a country that truly understands the importance of values and standing up for these values. Not only Croatia has stood up for them as a member of the European Union, but also by making sure that it offers all the necessary support to the countries in our region to move towards this objective. In fact, as I stated yesterday in my meetings with the President and the Prime Minister, there are very few countries around the world, and especially in the European continent, that understand Kosovo and the rest of our region the way that Croatia understands us, and that support us the way that Croatia supports us. With the membership of Croatia in the European Union, and of course Slovenia as well, we understand how much more peace and stability that has brought to our region. With the membership of Croatia, Slovenia, but also Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Albania into NATO, we understand how much more security and safety that has brought to our region. For that reason, we see the Euro-Atlantic community as our only home, the place where the Republic of Kosovo as well belongs, the rightful place where we seek to give our contribution as well, so that the members of the Euro-Atlantic community start seeing our potential as well, and not just see us as a burden. Of course, as we speak, we are still facing enormous challenges, primarily security challenges, that are unfortunately coming from Serbia as the only source of instability in our region for many years now. It is unfortunate that this is happening because, of course, countries in our region, at least 4 out of the 6 in the Western Balkans, including Kosovo, are at the 100% alignment with the EU on every foreign and security policy decision. Although Kosovo does not have a candidate status yet, and we don't even have a legal obligation to align with the EU on every foreign and security policy decision, we have done that as a unilateral will of the people and the institutions of Kosovo, and aligned with the EU on every decision, including the latest ones when it comes to sanctioning Russia or sanctioning Iran and a number of terrorist organizations. Unfortunately, that has not happened for the entire region, and we can see that Russia, through proxies, continues to play a very destructive and malign role when it comes to peace, stability, and security in our region. Which is why we need more help, more support, and more attention from the European Union. Because, as you all know, there is never a vacuum. If the European Union and the Euro-Atlantic community looks aside, the place doesn't stay in a vacuum. It's the malign forces, mostly led by Russia, that take that place, take that influence, and unfortunately then take the entire region backwards. There are, of course, dark forces that want to bring us back to the 90s. We need to make sure that it's democracy and freedom that prevails, and the values that stand at the very foundation of the European Union and the foundations of our countries that prevail during these very difficult times. Now, we've had security challenges in the past couple of days in Kosovo that amounted to an act of aggression by Serbia. What does that tell you? Not that I want to dwell into detail about what has happened in Kosovo in the past couple of days, because I'm sure that many of you have been listening to the news and also the statements that are coming not just from Kosovo's leadership, but also the leadership of the United States and the European Union. But it does teach us a very important lesson, which those of you in Croatia that have been following politics since the 90s already know. And that is very simple. Appeasement of autocrats never works. Appeasement of autocrats never leads to long-lasting peace. In fact, it has the opposite effect. That's what history teaches us. The more autocrats and dictators are appeased, the more they are emboldened and encouraged to use violence. Not to choose the West, but in fact to choose the Kremlin. Not to choose democracy and peace and good neighborly relations, but instead to choose violence. And we strongly believe that it was exactly the active appeasement policy towards Vučić that has led him to believe that he should resort to violence. And we are openly speaking about this with our allies and partners in the European Union. Because if no preventive measures are taken towards proxies of Russia in our region. Unfortunately, they might become more and more successful by the day in taking us backwards instead of moving forward towards the European Union. Because the European Union does not want a region that is in turmoil. They don't want the integration and the enlargement of countries that have problems with one another, let alone security problems. For that reason, it is important that we do not allow those who believe in Kremlin to invest into destroying the hard-won freedoms that we have in our region. The freedom, the independence, and of course the peace, security, and stability that we have achieved. Security is extremely important. Having a clear timeline from the European Union is important. Just talking about the EU perspective is not enough anymore. We've been talking about the EU perspective for more than 20 years, since the Thessaloniki summit. It's about time that this perspective, as I said, turns into concrete action and steps forward for our countries where we can see the tangible effects of joining the European Union. When it comes to Kosovo, we don't see the EU as a cash machine, as some others might. For us, of course, it's about prosperity, but that's not the main reason why we want to join the European Union. We want to join this union because of the values, the foundational values that it represents. And we believe, to be very honest with you, that on so many of these issues, especially in defending these values, the people of Kosovo are even more far ahead than some countries that are already members of the European Union. And we are very proud of it. 96% of the people of Kosovo are in favor of joining the European Union. Again, for the prosperity, of course, and the support that it offers, but mostly because we believe that we will be among like-minded countries in a community of free nations that stand up for freedom, democracy, human rights, and rule of law. In the past 2.5 years, the reforms that we have been undertaking have brought Kosovo from a country that was really far behind in these developments to the country topping the international indices on democracy, on rule of law, and on human rights. And we will continue with these reforms because we strongly believe that democracy is never a finished project. We can never say we have achieved enough. We should always say we must achieve more for our citizens, for our country, and of course because we owe it to future generations to make sure that they never have to go through what we had to go through while growing up as kids and then as young people. So reforms are extremely important, and we should never try to find justifications for not carrying out the reforms that are required in our Euro-Atlantic path. Quite the opposite. In Kosovo, much of what's happening is happening even before we get the candidate status. In fact, it's been since 2001 that every single piece of legislation in the Republic of Kosovo is initially aligned with acquis communautaire and only then adopted. A process of full alignment that actually only full member states go through. We've been doing it through 2001, and already in our system, every law that is adopted by the Parliament of Kosovo is in full line with acquis. And as I said, the reforms that we have been undertaking in this past 2.5 years, especially on rule of law, put Kosovo at the forefront of positive developments in this area, especially moving on with developing our democracy. We are number 1 in the region according to international indexes, number 2 in Europe, and number 3 in the world when it comes to the reforms that we have undertaken in the area of rule of law. My final point, so that we leave some more space for questions and answers, which I'm very much looking forward to answering. Croatia's membership to the European Union has brought the entire Western Balkans to a new point, a positive point of security, stability, and peace in the entire region. But without the entire region joining the European Union, we strongly believe that the project of a Europe whole, free, and at peace is impossible. So once again, it is not just in our interest. It is in the strategic interest of the European Union to make sure that the dream of a Europe whole, free, and at peace becomes a reality. And it can only become a reality with the Western Balkans as part of the European Union, of course, based on a merit-based process. Thank you very much for your attention.
Pa, izvolite pitanja.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. First, I want to say it's a real honor to have you here with us, sharing your thoughts, knowledge, and wisdom with us. We saw and heard of the attack on Kosovo that happened on 24th of September, which was more likely than us organized by the Serbian government. My question is, how do you plan to address the ongoing challenges related to Kosovo's relations with your neighboring country, Serbia?
Thank you very much for the question. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the most challenging times that we faced, in fact, in terms of security. It is the most challenging time in almost 25 years. Serbia, in all aspects and based on criteria of international law, has actually committed an act of aggression against Kosovo. And as you pointed out, the connection with the institutions of Serbia is very clear on four main grounds. First of all, the financing of the terrorist group and the paramilitary group that carried out the attack has been made by the government of Serbia. Secondly, the trainings of these groups took place in military bases of Serbia for quite some months, especially the days before the attack. Thirdly, the arming of this group took place by the state of Serbia, because the weapons that we have confiscated actually have been produced by the military industry of Serbia, and they are military-grade weapons that can never be sold to ordinary citizens. And we have also found certificates through which the army directly handed over these weapons, military-grade weapons, to these terrorist groups. And finally, there's the political connection, because we're talking about the same group of people, the connection between the mafia and the state in Serbia, and all of this, including the political statements of the Serbian officials, not just covering up, not just sheltering these terrorists, but also justifying their attack, shows that all of the elements of an act of aggression are in place. Now, how are we going to deal with this? I wish I could give you some rational ideas, but rational ideas are proposed to rational people. We haven't seen any rationality from the side of Serbia. So we're dealing with a state that has resorted to violence, that is deeply interested into bringing us back to the 90s, that still glorifies Milosevic, that has never apologized for the crimes. Quite the opposite. If you listen to them, they don't criticize Milosevic for starting the wars, which led to 150,000 civilian victims. They only barely criticize him for not winning those wars. So this tells you everything about the mindset that exists there right now among the leadership, because I never talk about collective guilt, so I'm not talking about the people. So while we're dealing and facing such a leadership in Serbia, all that we can do is guarantee from our side that Kosovo is only interested in peace. Kosovo is interested into constructive talks, but before they resume, based on a business as usual approach, we need to make sure that there is a clear understanding as well as accountability for the attack of the 24th of September. We cannot pretend that it did not happen. It happened in front of the eyes of the world. You know, KFOR and the EU-Lex mission were there seeing what was happening. Everyone knows, NATO and the EU, all of our partners, how this was organized by Serbia and how it was carried out by terrorists. Just imagine one thing. weapons of a military grade normally have a clear chain of custody. So they are under the chain of custody of the state. If this time they ended up in the hands of terrorists, they came to Kosovo, but next time these weapons, military grade weapons, through these terrorists might come to Zagreb. They might go to Berlin. They might go to London or to Paris. Because this is what happens when you give weapons to terrorists, especially when you give military grade weapons to terrorists. So all of us, in fact, are endangered by that attack, not just Kosovo. So there must be accountability on Serbia for the attacks that they have committed. And of course, we need more support from the international community so that we can secure the border between Kosovo and Serbia so that no more weapons and no more armed people can enter. We see these two as preconditions for peace, but also as a prevention for further attacks from happening. If these two preconditions are met, which are not preconditions of Kosovo, but as I said, preconditions for the sake of peace, I strongly believe that then we can get back to a process that is more balanced, and in that process Kosovo will certainly be the constructive party and one that contributes to peaceful relations with all of its neighbors, including with Serbia. We have never attacked Serbia. We have never invaded Serbia. We have never committed any crime against Serbia. In fact, the Kosovo police is defending Serbs in the north from the gangs that are attacking them on a daily basis, intimidating and terrorizing them on a daily basis through gangs that are paid, financed, and incited by the government of Serbia. So the more we are supported by the transatlantic democracies, the more we will be successful in maintaining, securing and safeguarding the peace and stability and the hard-won freedoms that we have achieved together with all of you.
Thank you very much for addressing us here, the students and the faculty. My name is Ivan Grdicic. I'm also teaching here and a professor of political science. I don't have really a question. I have two comments that I would like to hear your response. We have seen in Croatian development and membership process that NATO alliance and getting ready for NATO membership is a good step towards the European Union. There's a lot of work that has been done in the NATO accession process that is useful and sort of a general rehearsal for a future European membership. You got your IB ready in time. So I would like to hear your comment on this. Do you think about this as a good strategic way to the final aim? And the second suggestion, if you'd like to comment, is you have a hard-working diaspora in the European Union, in Croatia, people who already live in the European Union and work and support the families in the country back home. Do you have any plans how to incorporate this knowledge and experience of these people in your reform process at home? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely very valuable comments, and I definitely agree with you when it comes to the first comment that you made, that NATO accession has prepared so many countries to be even more ready for their accession to the European Union. We've seen that with some countries in the region, which is why for the current institutions of Kosovo, NATO membership is priority number one. For many reasons, that being one of them, what you just mentioned, but primarily because we believe to be in NATO means to be safe. And right now, safety and security are a precondition for us to be more effective in the rest of the reforms, whether they relate to rule of law, human rights, or democracy, or economy, that very much bring us closer to the EU. Without feeling the safety that we need, it's going to be very hard to work on rule of law and economic reforms that are required by the European Union. So the top priority for Kosovo's institutions right now is to getting Kosovo ready for NATO membership. We believe that starts with PFP, Partnership for Peace. Look, it's really a paradox that PFP included Lukashenko's Belarus until a few months ago. And even as we speak, it includes Serbia, a country that doesn't even want to join NATO, and they say this publicly, but it hasn't invited Kosovo yet. Obviously, we do understand the complexities with the 4 non-recognizers, and that decisions are unanimous. But there have been models that we have used in the EU before, which made the non-recognizers feel comfortable enough to raise their hand, and we think such a model could be used within NATO as well. But it would certainly prepare us with the accession process to NATO reforms that are required to be even more prepared for European Union membership as a further step. Secondly, when it comes to diaspora, Kosovo has an outstanding diaspora. I think it's the best diaspora in the world. I know you have a great one as Croats as well, but ours is it's immensely helpful, supportive to their country. It's people that left during the 70s, 80s, well, some even during the 20s, because as you know, there have been a number of genocides against the people of Kosovo and ethnic cleansing processes from before, but especially the generations that left during Milosevic's regime and also during the war, they are so connected in so many ways, and they are economically supporting our country in ways that it's hard to put into words, and a great support. But at the same time, the knowledge that they are bringing back through different projects that our institutions are pushing forward has been immensely helpful. So there are a couple of smaller projects, some that are put forward to bring some of the best economic minds into some of the boards and institutions that can lead our economy forward. Secondly, there are projects that are aiming at including our diaspora into a more, how do I call it, citizen diplomacy, public diplomacy engagement. And there are also projects that are aimed at including our diaspora in reforming the education system in a way that would bring more vocational training to our educational system, because we see that there's quite an overlap and discrepancy between what the market economy requires and what our universities are producing. So we have engaged our diaspora quite a lot through their experience that they have, especially in the German-speaking countries. So Germany, Austria, Switzerland, because they do have that experience where it's a good mixture between vocational training and university teaching, so that our factories, our businesses can actually get the expertise that they need, instead of just getting the lawyers, the politicians, the international relations, all of us. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so that's why I can easily say this. We have a lot of diplomas, but very few people that the businesses need in terms of their training. So that's one area that we have engaged our diaspora experts quite a lot. The fourth area where we're trying to do more is medicine. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of our doctors, but now with the new law on wages, it's going to be better conditions for the doctors. But so many of the doctors that have left many decades ago and are some of the leading figures in the medicine world in the United States and in Europe are now helping not just the university, but also the university clinics to make sure that we are up to date with many of the methods that are used in medicine. So yes, there are a number of projects, but I think we need to do a lot more to make sure that the knowledge and the experience that our diaspora has gained in European Union member states, but also beyond, can actually be utilized even more.
Oni pitanja od studenata, da li imaju?
Sad ću.
Thank you very much. First, apology to Professor Grdesic, I didn't see him. Benedikta, Presidenta, Mr. Pohovsky, nice to meet you. So, what I would like to know is that we see that the new Turkish General has taken over the forces of KFOR in Kosovo recently. We see that tensions have been high and that the US and German and NATO forces have been stationed within the Kosovo to defend. But what I wanted to know, at what level is Kosovo's military readiness, if in case something should happen, and we all pray this does not happen, at what point is Kosovo ready, and not only on a military, but on a civil military level, and at what level is the infrastructure for Kosovo if it came to the point where mobilization was necessary? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So far, all of the security challenges that we have had have been very professionally handled by the police of Kosovo. that has been trained with very special trainings to deal with the specific challenges that Kosovo's North has presented in the past couple of years. We have, I believe, the most professional police in the Western Balkans, and the 24th of September has reinforced this, not just among us, but also among our partners. We still need to invest a lot in our police. We need to support them more. They deserve more support from the state, and we are certainly working in this regard. And when it comes to the role of NATO, they have a very clear mandate to make sure that they ensure peace and security based on also the military technical agreement that was achieved in 1999, according to which NATO must stop armed people and weapons that might come in from Serbia. So they have a very clear mandate to do this. Now, we have been coordinating our work between our security institutions and NATO pretty well, and the result of course, was seen on the 24th of September, and we need to work together in safeguarding the border. This is the main issue right now, safeguarding the border so that we don't allow smuggling of weapons, little green men uniforms, identical to the ones that were used in Crimea in 2014 by Russia, and as I said, the military-grade weapons and the armed men from entering Kosovo. That is key. We need to step up the efforts, and NATO has sent an additional 650 soldiers to make sure that the focus is precisely there. When it comes to the Kosovo Security Force, our army, now there has been a process of transition for the army. It's a 10-year plan, which we are respecting in full cooperation with our partners, primarily the United States of America, which is the main army that has supported the training and the preparation of the Kosovo Security Force. Now we are respecting that plan. It's very important that we do, because it's also a precondition for our membership in NATO. So things are going quite gradually. Sometimes, of course, we are becoming impatient and we want things to go quicker. But for the sake of the future, it's very important that we respect that 10-year transition plan. Now, some of the things that have changed in the past 2 years that we have been in power, we have doubled the budget for the army, especially when it comes to buying weapons purchase. We have been purchasing weapons primarily from some of our main NATO partners, including we've had agreements of military cooperation with Croatia. But it's the United States, Turkey, and Turkey, and some other countries that we're working with closely when it comes to this transition plan, both in terms of personnel as well as in terms of weapons. Do we need to purchase more? Absolutely. But of course, everything is being done in a way that it's in full agreement with our allies so that it doesn't harm our steps towards NATO. We have also modified our legislation, which until now had put a limit to how many members we can recruit in our army. So we have removed that limit, and there's an ongoing recruitment process. Only in these past 2 years, we have an additional more than 1,000 new soldiers that have been recruited and are undergoing training in the military academy, not just in Kosovo, but some come to Croatia, some go to the United States, United Kingdom, Albania, and many other countries. So it's a process. Of course, they have a clear mandate according to the Constitution and the law, but we believe that the security challenges that we are facing right now have been contained very successfully by the police with the support of ULEX as well as NATO. That's where we are for the moment. When it comes to the army, we need to continue with the necessary trainings and the necessary transformation based on the 10-year transition plan.
Izvolite.
First of all, I would like to thank you on behalf of myself and probably the entirety of the lecture hall for arriving at our humble university. Anyhow, let's get with the question. To my knowledge, in 2013, the government of Kosovo signed the Brussels Agreement in which it promised to form the Community of Serbian Municipalities, which hasn't, why hasn't the Kosovo government basically formed the said municipality in the following decade? To my knowledge also, the Serbian government and Vučić himself multiple times reprehended that and claimed to be the reasoning why the relations between Kosovo and Serbia itself have been soured. That's pretty much all. Thank you.
Soured, I don't remember any time when they were sweet, so I can say that they were only soured since 2013. It is unfortunate. I think from the side of Kosovo, we put a lot of sugar on it to try to sweeten them, but unfortunately it hasn't worked because no matter the justifications that they try to find publicly, nothing can justify the threat or use of force, which Serbia has done on the 24th of September. Political disagreements must be resolved through dialogue, through peaceful dialogue. Unfortunately, this is a principle that is not respected by Serbia since the 24th of September. Now, let me get back to the question when it comes to the 2013 agreement. I'm sure that during your student times, there are a lot of professors who tell you that when an agreement is read, you have to read the entirety of it. Especially in international relations, that is crucial. Why I'm pointing out to that? That's because the 2013 agreement, the one that you're referring to, provides for a number of situations and preconditions that must be met in order for that municipalities association to be formed. The basic precondition that Serbia had to carry out was to dissolve all parallel and illegal structures that Serbia was paying, inciting, and supporting within Kosovo. That has never happened. In fact, since 2013, in this past decade, these parallel illegal criminal structures have turned into transnational mafia that is now carrying out terrorist attacks and is causing trouble all over the Balkans by smuggling drugs, smuggling weapons, killing people, including Serb politicians inside Kosovo, terrorizing Serb citizens, and of course, while they are doing all of that, they also win multi-million contracts within Serbia. So that's the basic reason. Because instead of dissolving these structures so that then structures that were illegal can actually work within that association, they have turned them into criminal gangs that are terrorizing the citizens. The second reason is because in 2015, the Constitutional Court of Kosovo decided that an agreement that was reached on the principles of how this association can work has violated 23 articles of our Constitution. So, I'm sure that it's the same in your system, but in Kosovo, if the Constitutional Court says that an agreement has violated 23 articles of your Constitution, you can say, well, who cares? Let me just go ahead and implement it. So that's the second reason. The third reason is because there's a new agreement in place, now called the Brussels Agreement of 27 February and the Ohrid Annex of the 18th of March, which provide for, in Article 7, that the self-management of Serbs needs to be regulated in line with Council of Europe instruments and a number of other principles. So now, that agreement as well, just like the 2013 agreement, has a number of articles, not just 7. It has Article 1, which it has the preamble, which calls for the respect of sovereignty and territorial integrity of each party. It has Article 3, which obliges the parties to not threat or use force. It has Article 4, which obliges Serbia to not object to Kosovo's membership in any international organization, and so on and so forth. Also, it has articles requiring the parties to recognize each other's diplomas, to recognize each other's national symbols, and to open permanent missions in each other's capitals. Now, What Kosovo is asking for is full and unconditional implementation of the entirety of the agreement. What Serbia is asking is cherry picking, so implementing only Article 7. What the European Union is doing is unfortunately doing the same kind of cherry picking that Serbia has been doing. We think this is extremely dangerous for one basic reason, because we've seen it happen before. And those of you in the region know what I'm talking about. Republika Srpska in Bosnia and Herzegovina started as a Zajednica Srpski Opština in 1991. It did not have the competences of a republic back in 1991, but they gained from one competence to another, from one year to another, and they went from strength to strength to become the Frankenstein Republic that is now trying to destroy Bosnia-Herzegovina from within. So if we do that, if we just implement everything right now, and Serbia doesn't implement their part of the deal, what is the leverage that they will have to actually do what they promised to do, whether in 2011, whether in 2013, or the latest 2023 agreement? So in Kosovo, we believe that implementation should go in parallel. If Serbia implements something, Kosovo implements something. Then, both of us do our work instead of the cherry picking and instead of, the green pass that Serbia has been getting since 2011, where the list of their non-implementation is extremely long and they never did anything. But no one is calling them off. So this lack of balance and lack of fairness in the dialogue has actually hurt the process immensely. So we are not running away from our obligations, but we believe that there must be balance so that both parties implement and not just have Kosovo implement as we have done in the past 12 years of dialogue and not require Serbia to do anything. Because look at where this approach has brought us. It has brought us to a point where Serbia believes that they can use paramilitary forces to attack Kosovo and still get away with it. We think it's wrong, but most importantly, we think it's extremely dangerous because violence, as you know, it never ends with Kosovo. It never ends with Kosovo. We, in former Yugoslavia, that lived in former Yugoslavia, we know it never ends with Kosovo only. It's dangerous for the entire region. When there's a flare-up, there's a danger for everyone living in the Western Balkans. So balance, fairness, and full implementation without cherry-picking is what we're asking for. Once we get it, which I think it's also a basic requirement for any negotiation process, then I believe that we can move on. But right now, as I answered to your colleague, our focus in the Republic of Kosovo is security. We need secure borders, we need safety for all of our citizens, and then we can have, I believe, a more successful negotiation process.
Thank you. Hrvoje Prpić, a student from International Relations. First, I want to congratulate you on the winning against Dinamo Zagreb. And now, so the question is, from the legal perspective, under which legal base did Kosovo gain its sovereignty? And would you be willing to exclude northern municipalities from your territory if there is a legal base on it?
Perhaps to answer your second question first, because I think it's more immediate and more urgent to say absolutely not. In international law, there's a clear distinction on who has the right to self-determination. The right to self-determination belongs to peoples. Kosovo fulfills all of the criteria and always has that are foreseen in international law when it comes to being considered a peoples that has the right to self-determination, which does not belong to minority communities such as the one in the north. Secondly, the International Court of Justice has clarified the entire legal basis through which Kosovo has become an independent nation and has clarified also that no basic rule, whether of general international law or specific resolutions of the UN Security Council have been violated by the Declaration of Independence of Kosovo. As we have argued in front of the ICJ, Kosovo was a constitutive unit of former Yugoslavia, identical in all competences, but in name. But Kosovo had the same legal right, once Yugoslavia would be dissolved, to use that right of self-determination and decide on its own status. That's number one. Secondly, as clarified in the International Court of Justice, especially a piece written by Judge Trinidade of Brazil, which I very much would recommend that anyone would read. It's, I think, one of the best pieces written in the history of international law and relations. So, the judge of the ICJ explains that, perhaps to conclude in a few words. If a country commits genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, against the people who live in its territory, they lose the right to invoke the principle of territorial integrity and sovereignty. Serbia, under Milosevic, committed all of these horrendous crimes against the people of Kosovo. Therefore, based on contemporary international law, losing the right to invoke the principle of territorial integrity and sovereignty because, as the judge explains, the state exists for the people, not vice versa. If the state abuses this power to kill the people who live in its territory, you can't talk to us about territorial integrity any longer. Thirdly, compared to other processes, in Kosovo there was a clear and long negotiation process for the final status based on point F of Resolution 1244, adopted in 1999. That resolution had foreseen that there would be a final status negotiation process that must end based on the principles of the Rambouillet Accords. What does the principles of Rambouillet Accords tell us? They take us to a very basic principle called the will of the people. So practically the resolution 1244 had foreseen that the final status of Kosovo must be resolved based on the will of the people. If you read the opinion of the International Court of Justice, they clarify that on the 17th of February 2008, exactly that criteria of Resolution 1244 of the UN Security Council that was met, because the Declaration of Independence that was supported by more than 95% of the people of Kosovo was exactly the will of the people. It was not the decision of a bunch of politicians, but was an act of the people of Kosovo. And the ICJ says, exactly like when the United States said, we declare ourselves independent, listening to the will of our people. Exactly like when Greece became independent, that's exactly the same criteria based on which Kosovo became independent. And my final point, there's a clear interpretation of the International Court of Justice of general principles of international law that were followed, that took us to the Declaration of Independence, but the legal context, the political context, and the historical context all clarify that Kosovo's independence is in full line with international law. There's absolutely no comparison to what you're talking about in the north, where in fact in the north it's about 30,000 to 40,000 people that are living under the terror of gangs, criminal gangs that are paid by Serbia. 2/3 of the Serbs actually live in the south, east, and west, perfectly integrated into Kosovo society. The only reason why the citizens in the north are being kept hostage by Belgrade is because Belgrade has territorial claims against Kosovo. They don't care about the people. They care about the territory where those people live. So no comparison either from a legal aspect or other aspects whatsoever. And as I said, I would strongly suggest that not just the advisory opinion, about 40 pages document of the International Court of Justice, but if you could also read some of the separate opinions of the judges, especially the Brazilian judge, these are some of the most important pieces in the history of international law to understand how it came to Kosovo's independence and why it cannot be abused by other places in the world, let alone the case of the north of Kosovo, which is an integral part of the Republic of Kosovo, and of course it will remain so forever.
Dame i gospodo, dragi moji studenti, dozvolite nekoliko samo riječi zajedno pozdravimo predsjednicu, te dašu zonja prezidente Josi. Thank you very much. Faleminderit shumë. Zoti qoftë me ju e familjes tuaja. Urime Republika e Kosovës. Bravo. Hvala našoj predsjednici, hvala dragi gostima, hvala Your Excellency, našem ambasadoru iz Kosova, profesoru Martinu Perišaju, malo se digu. Zahvaljujem svim članovima pratnje gospođe predsjednice, pozdravi generala. Hvala. Pridon suprug gospođe predsjednice. A svima vama hvala što ste bili i vjerujem da će, da kažem nešto, da ćemo se opet vidjeti. Šihe mi hvala.